Merry Christmas, everyone. 2 years ago, we talked about the spiritual principle of beginning again, and this principle comes from Venerable Bruno Lanteri. So, this principle says that all of us always need fresh beginnings, fresh starts, and God is very gracious. He always gives them to us. But today, God the Father is asking us to give other people a chance to begin again. Now, why is that important? Because we all tend to pigeonhole other people in our minds. So, for example, we might say, my husband, he's always like this. Or my mom, she's always nagging me. So we do that with a lot of people. If we're going to see each other during family gatherings, we know when we get there who's the boring one, who's draining, who we want to avoid. And if we look around here, a lot of us, we know each other's faults. But is it possible that we could give each other a chance to start again? Because not all of us are the same. Let's say we haven't seen each other in a year, everyone changes. So could we give each other a chance to begin again? What we just heard in the gospel says this: in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So the first three words here, in the beginning, those are the exact same three words at the beginning of the book of the Bible, of Genesis. So when St. John uses these three words, all his Jewish readers immediately recognize, oh, he's quoting Genesis. What is he talking about? A new creation. So God's giving us a chance to begin again in his Son. So you know what the word is, right? Who it is? It's Jesus. In the beginning was Jesus, and Jesus was with God, and Jesus was God. So this is who God is. He is the God of fresh beginnings. Even though humanity always rejects him, he keeps on trying again. If we look at this famous chart of the 6 covenants that God makes with humanity according to the Bible, we see how gracious God the Father is. So God starts a covenant with Adam and Eve, but then they break it. Okay, well, let's start again. Noah at first trusts God, and then he doesn't. Well, let's do that again. Abraham, he has faith, but at the end of his life, he doesn't trust God fully. And then Moses, he's said to be the most humble on the face of the earth, and then he complains against God. Okay, let's keep on going. David at first seeks God the Father's heart, then he becomes lazy, he commits adultery, and then murder. So if you've ever been disappointed with the people you love, they keep on hurting you over and over again. You know, you have a better idea of what God feels. And yet he loves us so much. His love is perfect. And finally, he sends his Son, one person, together with our Mother Mary. Those two people are going to be faithful to the covenant. Finally, this is beautiful. So God every day gives us a new opportunity to love him again. Could we extend that same graciousness to the people around us? At the end of today's gospel, it says, no one has ever seen God. It is God, the only begotten Son, who is close to the Father's heart, who has made him known. This text reveals what we call in theology the mediation of another's eyes. So all of us have difficulty accepting the goodness that is actually in us. We all have pride. We all have many faults. We've failed in life. We don't see the goodness that God the Father sees in us. And so we need another person to mediate his love to us. Give you an example. Have you ever met a woman who doesn't think she's beautiful? Of course we have. So I've seen this scenario many times in life. You have, let's say, a woman who's objectively beautiful, but she doesn't think so. And then in her life, she meets a group of people. They treat her with great respect. They treat her with affection. Maybe she even meets a man who falls in love with her, and he cherishes her. And through the mediation of other people, the way they treat her, she starts recognizing the beauty that God the Father sees. And Jesus, as it says in the second reading, is a reflection of God's glory, the exact imprint of God's very being. Or as this text says, he is close to the Father's heart. It's Jesus who mediates God the Father's love for us. When you meet Jesus, you realize, wow, I am so loved. Jesus sees goodness in me, so much so he loves me, he died for me. So he mediates God the Father's love for us. So is it possible that when we look at each other, could we look at each other with the same love that Jesus does at us? So this is what God says through the prophet Isaiah. You are precious in my eyes and honored, and I love you. Now, this doesn't mean that we have to pretend that everything in our relationships is perfect, especially if it's not perfect. None of our relationships are perfect. And sometimes beginning again, let's say there's a situation where someone's safety is involved. Sometimes beginning again means separating ourselves from the person who's hurting us. And this is why God always asks us, go to confession before you take Holy Communion. Because God is very honest. He says, I love you. I will always bless you. I have no ill will towards you. But let's not pretend like everything is perfect between us, because it might not yet be. There's no judgment here. But do the right thing. Go to confession first before taking communion. Now, in our average relationships, what we're focusing on here is goodwill. Before you do anything else, before you change your behavior, just focus on in your heart. When you see the people around you, give them that fresh chance. Afterwards, you figure out how your behavior is going to change. So, for example, don't act weird. Don't hug someone if you never hug them. That might just make things worse. But if you realize maybe this Christmas, this sacred season, maybe it's a chance to start over, I could go to that person and say, hey, can we just have a fresh start? If that's the case, go for it. Praise God. But if you feel being too friendly towards someone might actually make it more uncomfortable, don't do it right now. Just focus on in your heart. Give that person a fresh chance. When we look at the image of baby Jesus, that is the icon of God the Father's gentleness towards us. When we look at the baby, that is how God the Father treats us. And then when we see our Mother Mary holding him, she cares so much about all of us, all of her children. And she's very concerned about our relationships with each other. God the Father at every moment gives us a chance to begin again. So with his grace, let's all extend that opportunity to each other. Merry Christmas.